Hi everyone, my name's Anne-Marie. Welcome to this Spellbinders card making project. I just want to show you a few of the items that we're going to be using from Spellbinders and then we'll get on with the project. The first item that we're going to use is the love stamp. Now this is a background stamp, or you can use it in so many different ways. So don't just look at it as a background stamp, because I just want to sort of give you a few pointers today of a different way that you can use it. So it says love repeatedly, and it's ideal not just for Valentine's or an anniversary, but birthdays and so many other different occasions. If you just want to send somebody some love, if you're thinking about them, this is ideal. So this is kind of like a stamp that you can do 1001 things with. Even though when you look at it and you go, oh, background stamp. No, we're going to just go one step further with that today. So the next item, we're going to be using the Bitty Blossoms. Now I know we've used this before, and in the previous video, I think it was Spellbinders video number 4, I show you how to make them. So it's the die we're going to use is the large one, but I'm not actually going to show you how to make the flowers in this episode, because we did it in number 4. So if you want to look back for Spellbinders number 4. And then the last die we're going to use is the label 54. One of my favourite label dies. It's just got a really nice shape and it blends with so many other things. So those are a few of the items that we're going to use. Everything I do use I shall put on my blog, all the details and the names and everything, and you'll be able to have a good look and see for yourself what there is. So the base card that we're going to use is a 7x5 inch card. This is my favourite size of card, and I've just used my bone folder to make sure that we've got a good sharp score along the edge so that it'll stand up nicely and it looks more professional, you know, when it's stood up, when it's got a good scored edge. So the first thing we're going to do is the insert. Now the insert for this is a really simple one, but it's got a great technique. So what I've done is I've already used a scrap of paper and I've cut it to the size of my insert, and I actually use rectangle Spellbinders B, the largest one in the set, to get the size for the insert. And then I've used the label 54 to make an aperture, and then I took a piece of ivory card and I stamped the background love words on it. So this is how I did it. So I can turn it all over now to show you. So I covered the ivory card and I inked up the stamp, and I literally stamped into the aperture. Now just one tip, because it's a very big stamp and it might be, I was going to say it will, but it might be bigger than the stamp plate that you've got. In fact, we'll just go back to the stamp. The two ways that you can use it. You can either lay it flat, ink it, and then lay your card on top of it, or lay your card down, ink your stamp, and then very carefully place it down. Now I do it this way, and then I actually take my acrylic block and run it over the top to try and get the pressure to make it stamp. So it's entirely up to you. The one thing I will say is I found this needed wearing in. Now sometimes you get a stamp and you stamp it once to take the silicone off the base of the actual image, and then from then on you get a nice clear stamp. I found that I had to stamp this a couple of times. Now I stamped it on scrap paper and I stamped it on good paper, which I'll show you for why when we get to the front of the card. But keep stamping it, because the more that you try it, the better this will stamp. So I think it was 3 or 4 goes that I had on scrap paper, and then I was finding I was getting a good stamp. Plus you get to know the pressure that you're using to actually stamp, as it were, because normally on a block you know your own pressure of how far you have to push, etc., to get a nice image. So this is, it's a bit different with it being bigger, but it, you know, it's quite easy. It's not a difficult stamp or anything, but I just found mine needed wearing in. So we'll go back to the insert. So what I did was I cut the aperture and I placed it over the base of the card. I inked up the big stamp and then I stamped over the top of the aperture, and then keeping the aperture on, I inked around the edge with spun sugar and worn lipstick, and then I just coloured in one word just a bit darker in a charcoal marker, and then I inked around the edge with a black StazOn ink. So I hope that all makes sense. So it's kind of like masking, but using your own scrap paper. And that's the insert. So you've still got room for your to and from and everything, little message, but it's going to match perfectly to the outside of our card. Now I'm just scoring again using my bone folder to make sure that the edge is still nice and sharp. So the first layer that I've cut, again using the Spellbinders rectangle dies, is the base layer, and I've cut it in a nice general black cardstock, and I'm just popping it over the top of our card to make sure we've got a nice base. Next, I've used the background stamp, and I've stamped it on ivory card, and I've stamped it in black and red. Now I know you may be thinking, oh Marie, I can't see any red, just looks black to me. Well, here and here I stamped, I inked it red in just two places, tapped it a couple of times, and then I went over it in black, just so that we got a little bit of a two-tone, not too much. What you could do is, if you wanted more, you could ink it all and then just with a pen highlight one of the words if you were just wanting to highlight the word love. So that's how I've stamped it, and I've got flat tape on it, and I'm using the full section for the background to start with. I think this is a great stamp, actually. When I first saw it, and I thought, oh, I can do so much with this, I've been looking forward to doing this card because I think it just shows how much you can do with one stamp. So next, I've used our labels 54, and I've cut out in black card, the same black card as the background, just a general black card, a die cut. And then out of some of the testing paper that I did, where I've stamped it in red, I've used the label 54 again and cut out the next layer down in the label 54, and that can sit nicely on its background like that. And then I've got a gorgeous little ivory bow like that I'm going to position underneath. And then we're going to use one of our bitty blossom flowers. Now I've cut out a couple. What I did was I made the flowers out of where I've stamped it as scrap. I've cut the flowers out of where I've stamped. So that would be something like this, where I've stamped it just to keep getting the stamp to warm up. I've used this as my paper to make my flowers, and I think they look great like that, actually. I've always liked the newspaper look flowers. Well, these remind me of that, and I did actually do them in different sizes because I couldn't work out which I was going to like. So I made a couple, and I'm going to go with this one. and I'm going to use some silicone glue. Now, I've been asked about silicone glue quite a lot recently. I tend to use pin flare silicone glue. However, Sticks 2 do a great silicone glue, and I know there's others on the market out there. It always normally smells just silicone, but it dries quite quick and it gives you the height and movability for adding an item like a paper flower like that. And it's not an expensive product, but it is a product that, you know, I always have in my stash. I don't tend to use for projects so much unless it's a 3D item like the flowers. So, and it gives you movability so you can position, and then you just need to let it dry in its own, you know, time. They all differ in drying times. So that is our card finished, and I think that it's such I want to say classic. It's a neat card that could work for so many different occasions. It's not a difficult card. It's just something a little bit different, kind of modern, but very easy. You wouldn't have to use the labels 54. Whatever shapes you've got, you could use that. But it's showing you how you can take a normal background stamp and use it as the focal point and use it for your flowers. And I think that's kind of neat, that, because we like value for money. We like to look at our stamps and think, what can we do with it? We don't just use it as a background, we want to use it for more. And I think that's ideal to show you that. So it'll stand up nicely. You might need a little bit of padding where you've got your flower, but that will go on a mantelpiece. It won't go on a windowsill, because sometimes we save the best for the mantelpiece, don't we? So I do hope you've enjoyed watching. Please feel free to share. Feel free to comment on my blog on YouTube. I can't reply on YouTube, but I do read them all and click like. You can always find me on Facebook. I'm trying to, this month, get us all to share my videos to reach as many people as possible. And let's get some new viewers, and that'll enable me to get new things to show you in return, as it were. So thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you next time.